Today on the podcast, I'm joined by Antonelli Singers. We talk about what's actually worked for him over the years, how he's built a trusted local brand, and why consistency still beats clever marketing. If you're looking to grow something solid and sustainable in a estate agency, this is the conversation you'll want to hear. Hope you enjoy the episode. If you're an estate agent that wants to stay ahead of the competition and to make more profits, then you need to talk to Iceberg Digital. Iceberg doesn't just sit alongside your CRM system, it replaces it. It's the UK's leading AI operating CRM system for estate agents, combining your CRM system, prospecting, marketing, website, and compliance all in one ecosystem. Your CRM system becomes fully automated, taking care of those repetitive tasks your team shouldn't be doing. Your prospecting runs 24/7, scanning the portals, capturing property addresses, matching them with your database, and sending them personal outreach faster than any human ever could. Your marketing is automatically written to match your tone of voice. Blogs, property descriptions, vendor updates, all done for you. And your website becomes AI driven, adapting to each visitor in real time and making your agency discoverable on Google and also on tools like ChatGPT. Agents across the UK are already using Iceberg to run a leaner, smarter, and more profitable business. Visit icebergdigital.co.uk and mention the Estate and Consultancy podcast when you book your demo to get an exclusive perk. Okay, so we're very lucky today. We're joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Antonelli Singers. Nelly, thank you so much for coming on, buddy.
Absolute pleasure as always, Chris, mate. Really looking forward to it.
Well, I hear many congratulations are in order. Obviously, the biggest congratulation is that this is your second time appearing on the podcast. You're now officially friend of the show, and also on a minor celebration, you also recently got married, mate. So huge congratulations.
Thank you, but I'm more honoured to do this than I was at my wedding. Joking.
You wait until you finish the podcast. The new metered signature is going to absolutely kill you. So talk me through. So for those people that don't know, you don't follow on social media, haven't seen your fantastic post on Instagram, for example, talk me through sort of your journey in estate agency. How have we got to today?
So I started an estate agency on the 17th of September 2012, and I started at a large independent corporate agency, they were called. Um, Worked my way there from sort of trainee negotiator up to your, through your ranks, your sales negotiator, your ABMs, your managers, and all of that sort of stuff. And became really disillusioned with the job, the industry, people, everything about it, to be completely honest. And I then went over to a large corporate estate agency, which I won't name, and I lasted there 3 weeks, and actually realised how much better my training was where I was prior to that. But also just that really opened up my eyes to what the actual culture is in proper corporate estate agency, which was scary stuff, to be honest. So within 3 weeks, stacked that in, and then I became self-employed in September 2022. So literally bang on sort of 10 years from starting an estate agency to going self-employed was, it was a hell of a journey.
I'm impressed you know the exact date you started in the estate agency. I couldn't tell you what for dinner yesterday, mate, and you're remembering, the 17th of September, 10 years ago sort of thing. So I'm so impressed with that as an understatement of the century.
It was my dad's birthday. I got a bit of a
There we go. There, I thought there must be something. I thought there was some sort of event there, sort of thing. So, do you think that some people, you don't think it's almost like the grass is green on the other side sometimes? 'Cause I know lots of people go from sort of independence and then go, oh, I just want to work for a big corporate and have a nice salary and pension contributions and a company car sort of thing. Do you think it's sometimes a little bit case of like the grass is greener on the other side?
Yeah, I think so. I think you can be super tempted, especially when you've been in the industry for a while and people start getting to know you, and everyone does it. They try and poach different people. But you can get suckered into that whole world of, you know, um, they're giving you a big guarantee and a nicer car and whatever else they're offering. But the reality is, it's not the grass isn't always greener. And you can even say the same from jumping from corporate to self-employed life. And look, don't get me wrong, I'm always going to hold the flag up for being self-employed, but it isn't for everyone, in my opinion. It's you're very comfortable to build up your sick days and your holidays and all of that sort of stuff, and you get paid for all of that. But the moment you make that jump, it's not always greener.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I literally had the thought the other day, and as I looked at my watch, so I usually start work at about 5 to 8 in the morning. I usually finish at probably like half 5, 6 o'clock, that sort of direction. I thought to myself, imagine working 9 to 5. That's like 2 hours less working per day. I was like, I don't know how bad I've got it, sort of thing. So I think you do kind of like, you always sometimes look over the fence and think, oh my God, they're doing that and they're doing this.
Yeah, and to be honest, I remember the days of my corporate life. You go into the office, you have a coffee break quite often. You talk about the football at the weekends. You put your bets on. How much work actually gets done? How productive are people in the office? 'Cause if I'm being completely honest with myself, I can't say I was the most productive when I look back at certain days. Um, but yeah, so actually, how much of those 8 hours are you actually working? Basically what I'm getting at. But I do miss that 9 till 5 feeling of being able to just shut your laptop, go home, and not even think about it, you know? It didn't follow you home. But
Pension contributions are a nice thing to have. I should vote.
yes, that
So,
absolutely.
was there any particular thing that happened? So obviously you jumped over to being self-employed sort of 10 years after getting into estate agency. Was there any particular sort of landmark or moment or thought that you had where you thought sort of, screw this, I'm gonna do it myself? Or was it just like an evolution, the opportunity came up? What was the sort of happening around then?
I'd probably say for the last 2 or 3 years of my, employed career, I wanted to go and build something that was my own. The problem is in the corporate world, to make good money plus do all the other things, buying a house and saving up and all of that sort of stuff, it's really difficult to build up enough money to be able to put down to then pay yourself for 6 months because the industry we work in, the cash flow was so incredibly poor, especially at the beginning. It gets really good afterwards, but it can be really poor at the beginning. So cash flow was always an issue. Having a large chunk of money to be able to start that business was always an issue. So actually, it was always on the mind. I always wanted to do it myself because I thought it could be done better. But I think when I moved over to the aforementioned corporate agency and just seeing actually that they were paying, you know, for you to take a property on, but then to reduce it, they pay you 3 or 4 times to do loads of things, but none of them were to sell it until the very end. And I just thought that for me was, they're more interested in selling mortgage appointments than they are actually selling houses. So I think priorities for me were all over the place. The customer was never put at the forefront of any of that. I think just seeing that, I thought, no, I've got to step away from it. And it just so happened to be that I was lucky enough to come across TAUK at the time, offering that self-employed model where actually you don't need those massive overheads to be able to start your own business as long as you've got 3 to 6 months sort of worth of savings in your bank. That's completely different for having £150,000 to throw at a business that you're going to start, on the high street, start paying staff and everything else. So completely different proposition, which made me go for it.
So you kind of decide to go on the TA UK route, and
Mm.
so the first thing you need to decide is sort of where you're covering. So with regard to sort of the patch you're going for, talk me through the sort of mindset there, because some agents say, "Oh, I want to, I want to live in my area. I want to, the village I live in or the town I live in. I'm going to focus on that." Or other people go, "Actually, I don't really want to, don't want to see the people down the gym that I kind of work alongside, and my vendors and my sellers, etc. I therefore want a separate area." So how did you kind of come to the realization or the decision about where you want to sort of focus your business?
So when I first sort of done it, um, we had the choice for being sorry, let me start that again. When I first done it, we had the option of having a few different patches where you had exclusivity and free through TIA UK. Now that's changed quite a lot since then, but I chose the areas I knew. I went to school in SM5, I lived in SM6, and I worked in SM4, and they all kind of match quite nicely together in that line. You become quite protective of that, right? But what I soon found out was, you know, you're not really known in any of those areas, so you kinda start taking whatever you can whatever you can get when you're new, especially at the time when the model wasn't very well known, and it was really difficult to convince someone to trust you, to use you, because you will be able to sell the house, and it will be a much better experience. So I went here, there, and everywhere. However, if I were to do it again, I would probably be choosing a hyper local market to focus in, and what that means is one postcode area, and it's up to you. It's completely up to you whether you want to do it in the area you live, because that's where you go to the community, you have a community feel there, or whether you want to do it in the next town along because you want that little bit of separation, or whether you want to go after a prestigious postcode where there's really high value property and that's what you want to be known for. I think everyone's got to decide on their own niche. But for me, if I were to do it again, I'd probably say focus on one area and probably do it in the world you live in. It's a people by people industry. So focus on the people, and the easiest way to do that is just by being yourself within your groups and the circles that you roll in anyway.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? 'Cause I think the mistake that many agents make is they kind of launch and they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna cover this massive area," and I see it all the time on places like, LinkedIn and Instagram, for example, and you see in people's bios, and it's like, "I'm covering Hampshire, and I'm also covering Surrey, and I'm also covering London." You're like, "No, you're not." Like, just you honestly just not. It's kind of that trap of like, more houses equal more sellers. Surely that equals more money.
Well, yeah, I completely agree with the mindset, but I don't think the mindset is necessarily correct. And like I said, I've been guilty of it. I think if you look at my Google page, it probably says something along the lines of London and Surrey. That's huge. That is huge. It's like way too big. It's impossible. And then you get really protective of, oh, if someone comes into the area and they're doing something in SM4, you're like, get out. You're like turf wars. But you're like, no, actually, it should be a lot more collaborative and just have one area that you focus in, because actually the time you spend in your car, trust me, I know from experience, driving to these places could be much better spent building those relationships within your hyperlocal area. And actually it then all becomes easier because, like we all know in a estate agency, balls breed boards. So if you've got one over in London, in let's say, I know Greenwich, and then you've got another board over in Carshalton, yeah, you've got two balls, but they're not going to make the assumption that you're covering those areas or whatever, and they're not going to help you get another house. So what's the point in even having a board? So boards only work if you've got them in a hyperlocal area, because then all of a sudden people start driving around those areas, they start seeing your boards. That same person isn't going to drive in two different parts of London.
So I would say from looking at your business from sort of the outside in, I would say that you've kind of built your brand very heavily on sort of the personal service side of things. So I know obviously TA UK is kind of like, personal estate agency is sort of where they live. What do you consciously do or sort of not do in that situation to make sure? Because I'm sure lots of your business comes from recommendations of clients who kind of have used you before. So what's your big focus when it comes to that sort of customer experience?
Uh, First of all, I think it's just being yourself, and going back to the most basic, basic elements of customer service that you can take from all of it. It's, do what you say you're going to do. Don't overpromise, don't underdeliver, all of that sort of stuff. It's just do what you say you're gonna do. It's not that difficult whatsoever. And that in turn gives you reputation. That in turn builds a reputation, which will then mean that people will refer over and over again. Also, I think be consistent in everything that you do. So as you're building, people will recommend you the more consistent you are, the more if you book an appointment at 3 o'clock and you turn up at 3 o'clock and you say you're going to follow up on this at this time and you follow up on that time, you're going to give feedback on that time. Just do all of that stuff. And actually, all of a sudden at the end of it, people turn around and say, that was a really great service. I would happily recommend you to my mum or to my daughter or to whoever it may be. Um, and that's how I built the majority of my business. I think, looking back at last year, I didn't do a single piece of touting, which I'm trying to change this year. And that was maybe because I was too busy in lots of different areas rather than in one hyperlocal area. But at the same time, um, if I can take all of those recommendations and add it to the touting element as well, and going after business and being proactive in that sense, I think it can be a hell of a year.
And how hard is the conversation? I'm trying to phrase it in the right way, but how hard is that conversation with a seller who's on their sofa? Because I can imagine being a large corporate estate, you're like, we're massive, we sell lots of properties, we've got hundreds of buyers, every portal under the sun, every toy you can get with a CRM system, we've got it sort of thing. How hard do you find that conversation to go, it's pretty much just me. I'm your one point of contact from start to finish, and this is my experience. How hard do you find that conversation? Have you found it easier as you've advanced through your career?
Um, I I I don't mean to sound big-headed, but I find that part of the job really easy, because the beauty of going in on a recommendation is the fact that there's an element of trust that's already built. The hardest part of going to value someone's house is getting them to trust you and getting them to trust and believe in what it is you're saying. But when you're recommended, a lot of that's already done. At the same time, having built a social media presence, a lot of that's done as well, because you're being really open. You're an open book. Everything's on there. Um, I Again, this can come across really negatively, but what I'm saying is people would trust an actor that they see on TV. If you come across an actor that you watch week in, week out on EastEnders or whatever, for example, you're automatically trust them because you see them all of the time and you feel like you know their character. Social media is exactly the same. It's our shop window. It's the more people see you and the more real you are and not try to be someone else, just be yourself. you're building tons of trust without even realizing that you're doing it. And that's the beauty of it. So when you come to the front door and sit in someone's front room, that's already done for you. All you've got to do is just confirm everything that they think you are, be what you think you are, and sell the house and do it in a good way.
Well, you've just answered my next question already because I was going to ask you about the importance of personal brand in 2026. You've just absolutely nailed that out of the park. But instead, I'm going to pick on something else. I know I watched a video that you and Dan Woods did a while ago, and it was like I wouldn't say Hollywood production, but it was like I watched it. I was like I watched a lot of property videos, and so I'm pretty like quite thick skinned to it. And I watched it, and I was like, Jesus Christ, this is a really good video. And clearly, it was like professional videographer, and like it was like the biz. Do you? Do you think there's more weight in sort of the high-end production stuff that I've seen you do, or do you think there's more weight in sort of the low key, it's just Nelly and a selfie stick effectively? Which direction do you think is the most important, or is there no right answer there?
I don't think there is a right answer there. I think, everyone's budgets are different depending on where they're starting. Um, and some of the best estate agents in the country just use an iPhone on a selfie stick. But that works for them, but that because that's who they are and they're really comfortable doing that. So I'm more comfortable with direction with a professional videographer. I like the way it looks, and I think the type of client I'm attracting like the way it looks as well. So I'm catering towards that. Now I'm in a fortunate position to be able to say I've been in business 4 years. I've been able to develop a marketing budget, if you like, that I am able to spend on each month. So I'm in the fortunate position to be able to do that. That has come through the hard work before when like, you didn't have any of that. And at the end of the day, I feel we've got to constantly be evolving. We've got to constantly be changing to try and stay ahead of the curve. Um, but yeah, I don't think there is a right answer. I think that's you can leverage, what you have on your feed very differently to what you put on your stories. I would still never shy away on my stories to give the update on the budget or to let people know when the Bank of England base rate has changed and what that means for people. That's only ever going to be on a selfie stick or me literally walking my dog or holding my phone up in my hand. That's the point of being you. I think a lot of people fall into making the mistake, not so much of the quality of the videography, but the quality in terms of who they are when they're making that video. So they can come across a little bit like Channel 4 Homes Under the Hammer. Welcome to blah, 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 whatever. And that's not like I talk to some of those people in person, and that's not them. They're trying to be the persona that they've seen on TV. We're not TV presenters. We're just people who are trying to sell other people's houses and people buy people. I keep saying I'll always say it, and I don't mean it in the sense that I'm trying to sell anything. I'm just trying to deal with the people that I like, and hopefully they like me.
And do you think that's almost like a bit of a comfort blanket? So, if I put I don't know, the real Chris out there, for example, people are like, oh, he sounds like a Muppet or he's not very funny or whatever it may be. Whereas if I kind of put a little bit of hi, it's Chris Webb and welcome to this house in Sir, like, do you reckon that's a little bit of a safety blanket? Because they're like, it's not really me anyway.
Yeah, I suppose you tell me.
Sorry, guys, bro, I genuinely reckon it probably is. I think it's probably a bit of a thing that it's kind of what you see on TV is what you see might be like the more polished people, like the Kirstys and Phils of the day. To think, okay, that's the apex. That's the best of the best sort of thing. When really, I think it's about, as you talked about earlier, sort of getting your real self, inverted commas, out there. Warts and all, and you walk down the street, and some people might go, "Oh, he's a bit of a posh muppet," or other people might go, "Actually, sounds just like me. I really like him." Like, it's kind of putting your real self out there to make people decide whether they like you or not. And I think the maturity of business is going, actually, if you don't like me, that's cool. Like that's like no drama. It's like literally no problem at all. If you absolutely love me, great, fantastic. Let's get you on the market. Let's get it sold. But if you don't like me, no worries at all. But I think that's kind of the maturity where I think you kind of go for that sort of posh TV percentage. You're kind of trying to please everybody.
Yeah, so I think if we take it back to the question you asked me about hyperlocal area or whether you want to take everything, that us as estate agents, I think we're wired to not be able to tone stuff down. And I think that includes people. I think there is an element of I want everyone to like me. I wanna act for everyone. So I don't want to annoy anyone or piss anyone off. So actually what you're trying to do is cater and be this perfect thing and be really uptight, and then you become really uptight about it. And then it ends up coming across, in my opinion, worse. Whereas actually, if you just relax, like you would on a postcode, and just go, I'm just going to focus on this postcode, and I'm bound to lose stuff, and there's going to be other stuff around me, and people are going to say, I'm not going to be able to do it all. I'm not going to be able to please everyone. Just be yourself. You will then end up being super busy because more the people that you are like will gravitate towards you anyway.
I love that.
So that's and I think, but that's only come with maturity in the space, if you like. I think, like I said, when I was in year one, I'd be anything you want me to be, and I'd go anywhere you want me to go. But you realize that you end up bending over backwards and, bending morals, and you do stuff that you don't quite agree with, or agree to stuff that you don't quite, and I just don't think it's the right way. This model that we're doing, we've got an incredible opportunity here to try and really make it different to the traditional model. And more agents are coming over from the traditional model over to doing this. I'm seeing a massive influx, but we can't forget why we're doing it, and that is to become personal. And it's got it in the name, right? A personal brand, personal estate agent. That means you. That's personal to you. And it's so easy to fall into that trap and see someone doing one thing and being tempted to go and copy them, because you don't know what ideas you might come across, or you might not have that belief in yourself to be like, I back myself. Or there is an element of fear, right? If you put the real you out there, some people might judge you, and that hurts. And I get it. We're all human, but that's all we are. Everyone's human, and you're never going to please everyone.
So let's go back to kind of when you first launched with your own business. You obviously you picked your area and you picked the areas that you kind of knew and you kind of were known and liked and trusted in some way already, whether you worked there, went to school there, etc. Where did you get your first instructions from? So you mentioned obviously to start off with you had to kind of kiss some frogs, shall we say, with regard to instructions wise. What was the plan from sort of day one? Like, right, I've got a blank diary, I've got no instructions, let's go. What was that plan?
I'll be honest with you, Chris, there was no plan. It was very much, let's just get out there and see what happens. I was sat there, blank diary, nothing, and I just started going to addresses where I knew I'd sold a property 5 years prior. Started knocking on those doors, and you can't take any of that data with you, but no one's stopping you from being able to go and knock on those doors that you've got in your head that you remember, and going, "Oh, I remember me. I sold you the house 5 years ago." Do everything in. I've started my own business and going and doing that. I went and spoke to local businesses. I went and spoke to solicitors that I knew, and lucky enough, I had a couple of people call me as well that sort of said, "I've rang in for you. You're not there." And I've gone, "Yeah, I've left. I'm not." And they went, "Oh, no worries. I'll go and use someone else then. No problem." And so I went, well. I'm still an estate agent. I've just done my own business, and so I was lucky in that respect. But that's where having the pedigree behind you of 10 years worth of experience did help me. I'd forged a lot of those relationships already, and that's where it is harder, I think, for anyone just starting out. If you've never done the job before, or you haven't had many years, it's a lot tougher for that person than it is for the person that's been in it for 10 years, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. At the moment on our one of our weekday podcasts, I think it's our Monday or our Wednesday one, I'm answering questions from people where they kind of submit them to ourselves. And I think one of the most recent ones I did is, how hard is it to grow an estate agency business when you're brand new to a patch and you've got kind of no black book of local sellers and people sort of thing. And it's definitely a harder pitch without a doubt. But I think you have to kind of hit it doubly hard to kind of build that presence sooner rather than later.
Yeah, exactly that. Funny enough, I'm currently reading a book called "The Obstacle Is the Way."
Oh yeah.
Uh, yeah, really cool. And it's literally just turning adversity into advantage, right? So the advantage of that, no one does know you. So you can be whoever you want to be if you don't want to be yourself. So actually, it's exciting. And there's a great opportunity there to go and be that breath of fresh air in an area that might be super saturated. So I'm just trying to think on my feet about how you could turn that around. But I think that's a really difficult question to answer. And I think the only answer to it, if I were in your position, Chris, would very much be, you've just got to get out there. We procrastinate so much on fearing what someone might think or what to say at the door, and you build up this conversation in your own head about how something's going to go. It's 9 times out of 10, it doesn't go like that. It goes completely different. Our brain is wired to literally be negative about stuff. And I believe a lot of that is to do with protecting ourselves and evolution and all of that sort of stuff. But yeah, I think you've got to overcome that and just go and do it and be half, instead of being glass half empty, be glass half full.
Yeah, so I'm going through that a bit at the moment myself. Actually, I'll talk to you about after the podcast. I'll leave everyone else hanging on
Yeah.
that. But I'm going through myself for that at the moment. I've set myself a big goal for this year. And when we came to our end of year conference, I told them what it was. So about 50 people know, unless they've told more people. It's quite a big one. And
Okay.
I'm trying to, what I've always kind of seen it as kind of like being hit twice. So kind of like, doing it, you're like, okay, I'm here. And like, say, for example, you're talking on stage, like one part of it, you walk out on stage and you're like, I feel nervous. I'm about to walk in front of stage, about 1,000 people. Fine, like feel nervous. But what isn't very good is for the 3 months beforehand, feeling nervous every single day, going, oh my God, I've got that stage thing coming up. I've got that, I've got to worry about that. It doesn't do any favors. So I'm literally trying to live by that as much as I possibly can do at the moment and not worry about it and just think, oh, I'll be fine. I'll just rock up and it'll kind of work out sort of thing. So, yes, I'm very much feeling that pain at the moment, but hopefully by October, November, all will be very clear to say the least. So
Great.
yes.
I'm excited to hear what that's about. Very excited to
Uh,
hear what that's about.
there you are, Fizzo. I'll keep the suspense going. So talk me through what on earth is happening with collaboration in estate agents at the moment. Because I go on my Instagram and I see you, I see Jack Terry, I see Dan Woods, I see Dan from Haboodle, who all pretty much work in different businesses and brokerages. And it's like, high five, mate, we're here selling this property. What on earth is going on?
Yeah. That's a good question. So we all work in very similar areas. We all neighbor each other. And ultimately, it's about I view it as no, we're not competitors. We're here to try and help each other. And more importantly, our clients move. And if they happen to have a property on that I think my client's going to like, believe me, I'm going to send them to that person. A, because my client's going to like the property, but B, because I know they're a good agent and my client's going to get a good service with them as well. We're not defined by any boundaries, and that's the beauty, in my opinion, of personal estate agents. And now, if I can do that with a TAUK agent, of course we'll do it with a TAUK agent, absolutely. But that's why I do it with Dan all of the time. But there shouldn't be what if you knew of a property that your seller's going to like, but it's on with a competitor, you're not going to send it to them because you're scared of not earning any commission. Is that really the best thing for the vendor or for the buyer? It's not. That's the way I look at it. So we're lucky that we're all of the same mindset. Not everyone's the same, but we are. So we'll keeping it rocking.
I always think it's a little bit kind of like monkey brain versus like civilized brain or whatever the technical thing is. Like the monkey brain is like it's competition, like, oh my God, they're gonna do better than me or steal my vendor or whatever it may be. The logical part of it is like, yeah, like why wouldn't I get them to help me out sort of thing? And if you look at sort of like market share, I'm not sure what your market share Nelly is in the local area, but let's say you've got 10%, for example, and Jack Terry's got 10%, you're like, okay, we've got 20% between us. Okay, let's focus more on the 80% rather than who's got the other 10% in this equation. Let's focus on like the big part of the pie, how we can both move forward with that rather than focus on this tiny bit that your apparent competition's got.
Mhm. Absolutely, and I actually had it with Dan from Habu. We actually done a deal recently together where I launched the property. We launched it at a optimistic price, to say the least. We then I then said, "Look, Dan, this isn't working. It might have just been time of year when we launched the property, but the way Rightmove Zoopla works, you only get one shot at it, right?" And I genuinely said, "Look, I think if it gets launched with a new agent at the correct price rather than a price drop, I think it will work out. So do you want to work with me on it?" Boom. He went, "Yeah," straight away. And we sold it within a week. We still worked on it together. We still done the viewings together, still done the videos together and everything else. But actually it works out better for the client. And the property got that exposure again that it wouldn't have got had it have not gone on the market with a new agent. Us. From a selfish perspective, at the end of the day, this is a business. I still get something. And so does he. When it might have been a case that I got nothing at all, and the client's really unhappy, she leaves me a negative review, and she goes on the market with someone else, and they sell it straight away. So it's just like the hyperlocal stuff, just gotta let go a little bit sometimes and just trust your gut, trust the people you're working with, and know that you're doing the best thing, not for you, but for the client.
If I planned ahead, I should have really taken the podcast on the road because I've got Dan from Haboodle. I think he's literally been on the podcast 2 weeks ago. Should have just got 2 weeks ago from this one coming live. Obviously, you're on today, and I've got Dan Woods coming on in about a week's time. So I should have really just gone on the road and just done it live. But talk me through this sort of Instagram versus reality world of self-employed. Because if I go on social media today, I had a quick scroll before our video call today for 5 minutes or so, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's amazing! I'm here, and this house has got a swimming pool, and I'm here living the life, and I'm getting a new car delivered today, and all this sort of stuff." What's the sort of expectations versus reality when it comes to being self-employed these days?
From an Instagram perspective,
Mhm, yep.
yeah, look, cut the shit. Instagram, you're only gonna post very rarely do you get people go on Instagram and actually be vulnerable and say how it is in terms of the tough times and the tough plays. And I do applaud the people that do. I do it every now and again, but I'm luckily I rely on those people around me to have those conversations as well. Instagram is everyone's highlight reel, so they want their best properties to be on there. And I don't blame them because that is our shop window, right? So if that's your main shop window and you want to attract a certain type of clientele, you need to put the sort of stuff that that certain type of clientele is going to be attracted to. So, if you want to be selling 5-bedroom mansions and you're only posting about 1-bedroom flats, there's nothing wrong with 1-bedroom flats and there's nothing wrong with 5-bedroom mansions. But I'm saying the two don't connect. It's two different types of people that are probably looking at those. So I think there has to be some sort of strategy when you're creating your business and how you want to be perceived. And that's all that Instagram and social media is. It's how you want other people to perceive you. It's your shop window. We don't have a shop window. We don't have a high street branch that people can look in the window every day. So that's how we advertise ourselves. So, it, you know, at the end of the day, you can sit there and again get a little bit of paralysis and say, well, I don't quite have that property, so I want to build up to that. So I'm not going to post anything. Rome wasn't built in a day. You've got to go through stages of everything, just like you do in a career to get to where you want to be. Everything's a journey, and that journey probably never ends. It's constantly evolving.
Yeah, I talk to many agents every day, as you might imagine, and if you just take it on face value from their social media, be like, "Oh my god, they must be the happiest person in the world. They've got an amazing business, got loads of money," and then you chat to them, they're like, "Oh my god, I'm hating life at the moment. Like, I'm just like not enjoying work. I'm not enjoying this. This isn't going very well." And you're like, "Are these the same people?" So trust me, pretty much everyone you see online, myself, Nelly, Dan, whoever's got you looking at, sort of thing.
Yeah,
Trust me, there's sort of expectations versus reality, most definitely.
100%. And don't believe it. Well, in terms of, I'm not by all means saying I'm not honest with everything I post. That absolutely everything that goes on there is honest. But like you said, believing that everyone, it's going really, really well. How often do you see the days where people post about the 5 fall throughs they've had in the day? It doesn't happen very often. So yeah, look, everyone's got challenges. So actually just treat them right, treat them as you would anyone else. I would treat everyone with as much respect as I get given. And never assume that just because they're posting 5 new properties a week that their life's going swimmingly well. Because everyone's got personal lives as well. You never know what's going on in that background also. And I think social media is a dangerous, dangerous game, dangerous to spend a lot of time on because I'm saying that out loud, but even I can look at hell, I can even look at Dan Woods, who's probably one of my closest mates. And sometimes I call him and be like, mate, you're smashing it at the moment. And he'll give me exactly the same response as you just did there. So, we're just people. That's it. We're just human beings, we're just people, and we're just out here working, man.
Yeah, if you don't feel really bad about yourself, go through Dan Wood's stories, and it's like brand new massive house, new build listing, brand new massive house. It's not a happy one, not a happy one.
Yeah, yeah, it can really get you down.
How do you? So now you're busy. You got the socials, you got the selling stuff, you got listings, you got evaluations. How do you protect your diary space? Are you really rigid with regards to your structure you do every single day to make sure you get everything done you want to, or do you kind of like fly it by the wind slightly? What's your kind of structure to make sure everything gets done in the business and everything is as productive as it possibly can be?
As you know, if it's not in the diary, it doesn't happen. I do apologize about that. But I am super rigid with my diary this year. That's one of my New Year's resolutions, actually. Is last year was sort of free flowing and got myself really, really stressed out because I would say yes to everything. But actually, having the power to say no is incredible. Incredibly fortunate to have the power to say no to some stuff. But that comes from having some financial security, which I'm super lucky to have. But I think you can have so much better conversations with people if you do live by a strict diary and have time away from the office and have your set appointments and make sure your Mondays, normally we have busy Saturdays and Sundays if we're working both. So you need a Monday in the office to touch base with all of those people because ultimately, if you're not strict with your diary, you will become mentally a mess. But B, the people that start to suffer for it are your clients. So I think it's imperative, and I've been really, really good this year. Actually, I'm actually tap on the shoulder on that one. Quite proud of myself so far. Downwards, on the other hand, I hope he sees this. No, I'm joking. He's just too busy. He's smashing it.
I know you got a busy like if when you got a diary like Dan's, I'm sure it's just like busy by default. You can't be unproductive when you got a diary like Dan's. But it's just like, well, I've got 3:05 on the 1st of September. If you can fit me in bed. So Nelly,
Oh, it's great. But on that, actually, I was going to say, look, where we've got some exciting stuff going on, where we're building teams and all of that sort of stuff. And again, that's where collaboration comes into place. So if I've got team members underneath my brand and underneath Dad's personal brand and that sort of stuff, we can share stuff about. But likewise, if I am getting stuff that's is a little bit out of my area, as I said before, I am now more comfortable to be able to give that across and trust that they're going to get a good service and take a step back to give myself more time to keep on providing that good service.
Nelly, you've been very generous with your time today, to say the least. So I've got one last question for you, if that's okay. If you were listening to this and you're sort of in a corporate job or an independent state agency at the moment, you're thinking to yourself, I'm thinking about going self-employed. I'm a little bit on the fence. What advice would you give that person to make sure they've got the best possible chance of not only surviving but thriving as being a self-employed agent?
So you know what you're getting in for. It is you will have loads of time initially, and you will feel really uncomfortable with some of that time because you're programmed to be busy all of the time. But with that time, be you know be consistent and do 1 hour, 2 hours worth of a task every single day rather than panic and have to do 10 hours in one day. I think consistency, small bite chunks is the key and you will thrive. You'll absolutely kill it. Consistency is everything in everything you do, whether that's social media, whether that's touting, whatever it may be, whether it's diary control, consistency is key.
Nelly, thank you so much, mate. You've been an amazing guest as always. So thank you so much.
Pleasure, mate. Thank you.